Okay, I'm back. We had to stop working early today because the stump grinder broke down. Couldn't get it started. And so we spent a lot of time fiddling with it, but we couldn't get it to run there. It ran for a little while, and we did grind a couple of stumps down, but then it started getting that it didn't want to start, and we fiddled with it for quite a while. Myself and the property owner, we kind of wore ourselves out fiddling with it. So we decided that was that. He's going to have to change the fuel lines and pull the carburetor and clean it, and probably put a fuel filter in it too and stuff. And anyway, once he's done all that, then we'll take back at it again and we'll grind more stumps. But so it does mean that I finished early today. That'll happen sometimes. We have short days, so it's all right. But Rocky's pretty happy. He's having a nice feast out here. He decided he wanted to dine on the terrace, so there he is, dining on the terrace. Look at him munching down there. He's hungry. He's a ravenous little guy. He's got a good appetite anyway, which is good. If he's got a good appetite, that means he's still pretty healthy, which is an awesome thing. He's just a wolfing that stuff down there. All right. Well, I got to grab up the water bags and start doing the hot water bottle thing. Because right now, it's the time of year when freezing to death in the bed is not beyond the realm of possibility, you know. So, and I don't run the heater all the time. When I'm asleep at night, I don't run it because I don't really trust it. I got a wicked headache now, too. I got a toothache and a headache. Oh, there you go. My goodness. Anyway, the sooner I get my chores done, the sooner I can relax. Yeah, and that'll be all right. I like relaxing. Relaxing is awesome. It truly is. In fact, what I might do here, I might actually go into town. I might and buy some pork chops. I'm hemming and hawing about that. I think I might want to cook some pork chops tonight with applesauce. Although I got my toothache is coming and going, and that's kind of what's discouraging me from doing it. But it might do me some good. I don't know. It just might. Yeah. Last night I woke up and I'll tell you I was in bad shape. I was shaking and shuddering and my stomach was bouncing. I'll tell you, stomach was doing backflips. Anyway, I ended up throwing up. I was actually pretty violently ill there for a while. Poor Rocky was standing on the table watching me puke into a pail. And poor little guy was looking pretty concerned and meowing at me. You know, I could tell he was worried anyway. But I haven't actually thrown up in quite a while. So that's kind of good anyway. Hopefully it'll be a long time now before I do it again. I don't really enjoy throwing up. So look at him go, eh? He pulled it right out of the bowl there and he's got it on the ground now. He's like, I'm not fooling around here. I'll take care of it. Oh my goodness. Quite a cat. Anyway, as you can see, it's kind of a gray overcast day here today, and it's cool, but it's not super cold. It's, like I say, it's for the time of year, it's actually a really nice day. I can't complain. I will complain because I'm a complainer, but I really can't. I can't legitimately do it. I'm just going to do it because I like to complain. You know, it's funny, when I drove a cab, there was an old man I used to pick up and take out to the Peters restaurant downtown, or I'd pick him up at Peters restaurant and take him home. He had an apartment in town where I'd leave him. He was quite an old man, a fellow by the name of Charlie Cooper. Anyway, and sometimes he just wanted to go for a drive. And I felt sorry for him, really. He was an old fella, and he was miserable. He was grumpy, and he liked to complain about everything. And anyway, um, he very, very seldom had a good word to say about anyone or anything. But I knew anybody that miserable, they're miserable like that for a reason. And I figured that, he was an old man and probably life hadn't turned out the way he had hoped it would. And maybe that was his fault. Most of the time when our lives go pear-shaped, it really is our fault if we're honest about it. But then, too, people have situations that conspire against them, and all sorts of things happen. Plus, I know for myself, I made a lot of mistakes early on in my dealings with other people, and I still do make mistakes in my dealings with people, too. I won't say I'm the wisest when it comes to dealing with people, but, I made those mistakes when I was young and stupid. And also because I was perceived to be weak, I was targeted, and I didn't know how to cope with that. And so I made some mistakes in my coping with that too, and how I dealt with people who targeted me for abuse. And there wasn't a whole lot of there wasn't really any coming back from that. Like, there wasn't a whole lot of compassion shown in that situation. And so there was a lot of harshness instead. That's quite a creepy looking picture, isn't it? Ooh. Anyway, there's a lot of harshness instead. Rocky looks better. Um, so I know how it is anyway. And I don't know what his story was. It was probably a combination of things, probably a combination of circumstances that were his fault, and circumstances that weren't his fault, and circumstances that were his fault but really were out of his control because he was too stupid or ignorant to know any better, and so on. Just like with most people, when you look back over your life, you can see that. Anyway, bottom line is, he was not a happy camper. And he liked to talk about how unhappy he was. And I listened to him. I didn't care, I figured the old man, who's he got to vent to? Who's going to listen to all this shit? So I just listened to him anyway. And so he liked me. I think I might have been one of the few people in the world he actually liked. And he enjoyed talking to me anyway, just because I'd listened to him. That's really all it was. Most people didn't have any time for the old fella. Anyway, sometimes he would say to me, he'd throw me $5 or $10. He'd say, take me for a $10 drive. Well, if I had nothing else going on, I'd take him for a good long drive anyway, and he could talk to me about all the things he didn't like, and all that, how miserable everything was, and I'd drop him off at his place anyway. And I always took him for a good long drive anyway. I took him for a longer drive really than $10 would normally buy, or $5 or whatever, but I didn't care if I had nothing else going on. If I was backed up with calls, I couldn't do that. But if I wasn't, then, what the hell, I'll take Charlie for a drive. So anyway, take him out to the country there around, and drive him up some of the old side roads and stuff so he could see some things he wouldn't normally get to see. And anyway, one of the girls that was dispatching in the gas station that we worked out of one day, she told me that old Charlie Cooper had called and looking for a ride, and he only wants you. He only likes you. She said, I don't know why he likes you so much. You don't like anybody else. And I said, well, it's pretty simple, really. I said, he likes to bitch, and I like to bitch too, so we have that in common. That's what I told her anyway. She laughed. But there was a fella in town that was running kind of an illegal cab, kind of a pirate cab anyway. And he confronted me one time, because I guess he used to sometimes pick up Charlie Cooper whenever we were busy. And he says, what the hell do you think you're doing? And he said, You know, when old Charlie, he said, wants to go for a drive, you're hauling that asshole all over Hell's Half Acre, he said, charging them next to nothing to do it. And in the meantime, then he expects me to do that. He said, you're cutting my throat. He said, you're ruining my business. And I remember I looked at the guy and I said, well, no, actually, you're cutting my throat and ruining my business. Because I said, you're not even licensed to be doing this. You're operating illegally. And I said, it's guys like you that actually hurt guys like me that are doing it legally, you know. Because I said, we got to pay all the insurance, and we got to pay this and that, all these licensing fees and everything. And we can be scrutinized in ways that you can't be, and all the rest of it. I said, do you have any idea what the carrying for compensation clause costs on your policy for one of these cars? I said, you wouldn't have any idea because you don't damn well pay it. So how would you know? He went off in a huff anyway. He was mad at me. He was mad at me anyway. He was another one that was mad at everybody all the time anyway. So I didn't worry too much about him. But, yeah, just a few more stories, I guess, about things that happened in the past. I'm sure old Charlie Cooper's dead now because he was ancient when I used to pick him up in the taxi cab in 1990. So you were going back now, like 35 years. But anyway, bottom line is, anyway, that, you know, a lot of people in this world are just miserable because they can't think of any reason not to be. And maybe they're right, you know. I mean, maybe. But in the end, I just try to... My thing was I just listened to him, that's all. He just needed somebody to talk to. He was unhappy and he needed to vent. And so that's what I did anyway. I just listened to him. And like I say, if I had the time to do it, I'd take him for a good long drive. And, you know, and I did that because I figured, what else does he have? He goes up to Peter's restaurant and he has his lunch or whatever. Well, other than that, what does he have, really? You know, he's all crippled up. He can hardly walk. He has no family, no friends. Nobody bothers with the old fella. He's just kind of forgotten in an apartment, you know. So I didn't mind to do that anyway. And who knows? Maybe when I die, the fact that I did that will absolve me of some of my sins. You never know. Although I know only the sacrifice of Jesus does that, but we can't do it through our own actions. But still, I gotta figure it still don't hurt to have been kind to people, especially the people who really need kindness. And like I say, I think one of the reasons he was so miserable is because he just needed a little kindness. That's all. You know, he was living in a world that didn't give a flying you know what about him. And that's a pretty tough reality to be living in. And especially when you're old and vulnerable, it's a pretty scary thing. He was probably scared more than anything. Look at him go away. You never know what Rocky's got to do next. So there's a lesson in that somewhere, I suppose. But anyway, that's it for now. I'm going to hang up now because I got to light this stove. I do. I've got the fuel turned on there. We'll light the stove here. It usually is temperamental at first. There we go. Oh, you bugger, you. Okay. This thing acts up. This is why I bought the other stove. Ironically enough. Okay, now let me turn it down some here because it's going to want to go out. Isn't it wild, eh? You got to fiddle with it. Now you can see the blue flame. There we go. Okay. I'll keep it low for now until it gets going, and then I'll turn it up. Yeah. Hi, Rocky. Hello. Try to put this back here now, we do. Hang that up in there. Anyway, Rocky enjoyed his dinner. I dropped the cheesy on the ground. I think those cheesies might be one of the reasons I got sick yesterday. Anytime I eat stuff like that, I find that it doesn't really agree with me. Every so often I forget and get a hankering to eat some anyway, but this thing's still wanting to go out. Okay, well, I'll turn it right up and see what happens here. My head is really aching. It is. I got a wicked headache. Anyway, that's it. We'll see you later.